Adding cutscenes can be an effective way to tell your story and express personality through your game, but can be surprisingly difficult to manage. There's a lot of little interconnected pieces to create, and connecting them together requires a lot of work. I've actually done this before, but this time, I created a plugin for it inside of Godot. Howdy, and welcome to Game Endeavor, where I post devlogs with an emphasis on game design and technique. I'm creating a mini RPG game where you explore an open world and meet the quirky little characters that live within it. You did one little request and suddenly you owed the whole world a favor. You will explore the world to pay back these favors, and I want to show this to the player without doing so in a wall of text, which means I need to build some kind of event sequencer for managing the cutscenes. Cutscenes are great for telling stories, and if you're subscribed to this channel, then you know I love stories. My main game, Zoe and a Cursed Dreamer, is a story-driven game, and even though this game will focus more on action elements and combat, I still want it to tell a story so that the player can get a sense of what this world is like and understand its personality. But cutscenes are difficult to make, at least the way that I want to handle them, with branching paths and special conditions for secret events. I've made a cutscene sequencer like this before, and it took me months to get it functional. But unfortunately, I can't just copy it over because it's built into the endgame level editor, which I don't even want to talk about. So instead, I started working on a new event sequencer that I could use right inside of Godot, the engine that I use for creating games. I don't want to have linear cutscenes that are always the same. I want the events in the game to react to the various stages and conditions of the world. If you don't do an optional task in one quest, then I want this to affect future cutscenes. So instead, I've developed a sequencer that allows me to easily build complex cutscenes with branching paths. This uses the graph edit and graph nodes, which are very powerful tools with lots of possibilities. The best thing is that you can hook up multiple nodes and emit different signals according to how you want the graph to progress. When I add in dialogue in the future, I can even have these nodes branch off into different events based on your responses. An important aspect of cutscenes is that the player needs to be able to watch them without messing up everything by running around and being a nuisance. So I've added in the ability to set the player as an actor, which removes their controls and allows me to manipulate them directly via sequencer. But from the player's perspective, they have no way of knowing that their controls have been removed, or even when they can get them back, which could lead to some minor confusion and annoyances. So I needed to create some kind of cue that a cutscene has started and ended, but I don't want to be too on the nose about it. I mentioned this in my Discord community, and Sharky made a joke about Lakitu that follows Mario with a camera, which would be pretty amusing. I can imagine a goblin just floating around on a balloon frog during the cutscenes. Instead, I added a letterbox effect to start and end during a cutscene. This gives it a more cinematic feel, which is a nice bonus and it's not too obtrusive. It's just simply moving a couple of bars in the frame, but the effect really makes a big difference. I've created lots of little nodes to manipulate the world to make the cutscenes more enjoyable, but I needed to be able to tell the sequencer which nodes to perform these actions upon, and I'm not entirely proud of how I did this. Originally, I wanted to try and piggyback off of the little window that pops up when you export a node path variable, but I couldn't find it and I'm too lazy to create my own. So instead, I decided to get the node that you have selected inside of the engine and use that. There are a couple of benefits to this, being that I could select the node in the scene preview and use it, which is pretty convenient. Multiple nodes inside of the engine, which means that I could possibly have an action performed on every node you have selected. This may be something I play with in the future. However, how I'm getting these selected nodes is what I'm not proud of. When you create a plugin inside of Godot, it gives you some methods to access the different parts of the editor, but you can only access these from the main script itself. I needed to get this inside of the little graph nodes I've created. So what I've done is to create a temporary plugin, call the methods from that, and then free it from memory. It works. With these tools, I'm able to create interesting cutscenes with a lot of ease, so I'm going to be working on the story of the game and adding these interactions for the upcoming demo. For this, I'm going to need to create NPCs, and you know how much I love designing new characters. I've already created a grumpy confectioner and mysterious merchant which I drew with my community during the live streams on Wednesdays, so if you want to help create these NPCs and give suggestions for the game, then be sure to join us there. It's a lot of fun to bounce ideas around, and you'll get to see my process for designing new characters in real time. There's a playlist in the corner if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you to all the patrons that support this content, and I'll talk to you next time.